Thanks for staying with us on the News at 1. Let's take a look at your market news now. Asian stocks bounced back from recent lows, taking their cue from a stronger performance on Wall Street as investors judged that recent reaction to tit-for-tat trade action by the US and China were overdone. Tokyo led the gainers as improved market sentiment reduced demand for the safe haven yen, bringing the currency under downward pressure. Key exporters like Sony and Toyota therefore drove gains. The Nikkei share average climbed 1.5%. Meanwhile, Hong Kong and mainland China bourses were closed due to public holidays. Wall Street stocks staged a comeback to close Wednesday evening higher. This as investors turned their focus away from trade wrangles between the US and China and more towards earnings, which are expected to be solid for the first quarter. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.96%. The S&P 500 gained 1.16%, while the Nasdaq Composite Index added 1.45%. Let's take a look at your main financial indicators now. Ian Cruikshanks, who's the Chief Economist at the South African Institute of Race Relations, joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC
Good to be with you.
News.
Thank you.
Let's start with the United States. We saw lots of drama there with their tech stocks dragging the markets lower and also fears of this trade war between China and the United States affecting them.
Yes, and that certainly has had a ripple through to a global impact as well. We've seen it on our market-leading stock, that's Naspers, which is strongly involved in the technology sector, and the largest contributor to the overall index, has been very much open to movement in what's happening in the American tech sector.
Mm-hmm. And how else has it affected our market, specifically in South Africa?
Well, if we look at Naspers, the biggest stock on our market, I think that has been reacting not just only on its own internal fundamentals, it's been reacting to what the global markets led by US markets are doing. Mm-hmm. And as they have had a huge volatility, we've seen that come stress through into our market as well.
Have we seen any change in safe haven currencies like the yen or in things like gold when the market is a bit panicky about factors like this?
Yes. Certainly, and that's to our detriment, of course, because we looked at the other end of the scale to the safe haven, but there has been some interest in gold. The gold price has come up a bit, and in some commodities have taken a little bit of a hit as well. So yes, it has had an impact, and it means that we're not seeing, as an emerging market, the capital flows that we so desperately need at the moment.
Okay. Let's zoom into our markets here. When we talk about the markets, we mostly focus on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Yes.
We're seeing that Huge Group has listed on South Africa's newest exchange as the HUX. Huge is also listed on the JSE. So is there any point where we're going to see HUX growing and maybe even taking over from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange?
Your last question, no. No, I don't think so, not in the foreseeable future. You know, the JSE has been established for over 100 years, and I think that it doesn't show any signs of being overtaken. I think the HUX will be a smaller rival for smaller cap stocks, and I think it's probably going to stay that way for some time. There's not going to be a lot of listings in both stock exchanges simultaneously. There's too much cost involved.
Speaking of too much cost or a lot of cost, Sagamantha, which owns IOL and Loot.co.za, says it's planning to raise 7.5 billion rand to try and list. What do you think of this?
Well, I think that looks like an expensive valuation on assets which are difficult to quantify. That means, in polite terms, it'll be difficult for them to raise the sort of capital that they're looking for. But they have R1 billion in debt, and obviously it'll be very beneficial to pay down some of that debt. And maybe that's also part of the listing, and that would be a positive mood.
Mm-hmm. A company which mainly focuses, like they do, on content creation, content collection. We're also seeing that people from outside may be investing. So do you think that they will be able to raise that 7.5 billion rand, seeing that there are companies in Asia that are allegedly said to be interested in putting towards that money?
I wouldn't anticipate it. I would wait to say, let's see what really happens. Let's see the flows into the bank account and only believe it and start fundamentally analyzing it once that cash appears. I wouldn't say take it for granted that it's going to. I'd leave a question mark there.
We're speaking about big stories. Murray and Roberts is also one.
Yes. Yes, it is. You know, there's been this bid that's made for them, equivalent to about 15 rands per share, but they've done their own, the independent directors have done their own valuation. And this is interesting because they say 20 to 22 rand would be a fair value. Well, of course, they're going to say it'd be higher than whatever is offered. You know, that's human nature. And they just coincidentally announced 3.5 billion of new contracts, which they've got. It's a remarkable coincidence that it comes right now when they're trying to push up their actual book value. It's going to be interesting. It's a long time since we've seen a hostile bid for one of our major companies, and I think it'll be an interesting development. It does show that the abilities of our major construction companies, civil engineering companies, is recognized worldwide, and I think that is something that's the reason why this bid has been made by this German company that has global interests.
How much will the construction cartel collusion, if we're going to put it politely, scandal, play, or how much of a role would that play in a scenario like this, in a takeover, or does it not matter because of the contracts that you've been saying announced and
new ones?
Yeah.
I think that is behind us now. They paid massive fines, I mean, running into billions of rands, and those are now behind them. They've been settled. I don't think there is still more to be settled. So, and it's unlikely that the government would say, let's have another investigation. We think there's further grounds for penalizing them, because they also want that fundamental anchor in the economy, construction, civil engineering work. They want that to get involved, to put strengthen their roots, and to help to grow the structure of the economy. So I think we are past that.
Ian Cruikshanks, thanks so much for your time.